Roar presents Sister Brother Animal, Vegan 2018 by Plant-Based News from YouTube.
You're now in 25,000 stores, which is fabulous.
It's a wonderful experience.
Certainly the buzzword that I'm hearing here is plant-based everything is where it's at.
People are now starting to recognize the abuses that exist in animal agriculture, not only to animals, but to workers, to rural communities, to the environment.
You know, you look at the role of animal agriculture in climate change and antibiotic resistance and rainforest deforestation and ocean acidification.
So many things converge around the same intersection of what we put in our mouths every day.
But then everything went a step further when it was revealed that another product called clean meat could be brought to market by the end of 2018.
What you're seeing on your screen may look like ground chuck, but no animal was harmed making it. Instead, this beef was grown from animal cells. The result? Meat without the animal, antibiotics, or waste.
There's a whole host of startups that are racing to commercialize the world's first ever meat, milk, eggs, and leather, and other animal products that, as you correctly point out, are grown from animal cells rather than from animal slaughter.
So go into a little more detail about how that is done.
So imagine taking a tiny sesame seed-sized biopsy from an animal's muscle tissue. You put that biopsy inside of a cultivator where those cells, which would grow into muscle inside of the animal's body, think they are still inside the body, and then they grow into muscle exactly as they would in the animal's body outside of the body. And what that gives us the chance to do is to produce real meat that is much safer to eat and takes far fewer resources.
If meat bosses had been scared before, now they had a real reason to be, as a powerful vision was being created of a confinement and slaughter-free world. And the conversation around what the future of meat looked like reignited in an unprecedented way.
When we have a burger, we have a piece of chicken, or we have duck, today the idea of eating meat and eating animal is one and the same. Tomorrow, I think those two ideas will be separated. We can eat all the meat that we want, but it won't require the slaughter or the confinement of an animal.
As clean meat gained widespread attention and funding, the effect on meat industry representatives that rely on breeding and killing animals for profit became visible.
I'm not quite sure what it is, and I'm not quite sure how it's derived, but I'd call it fake food.
You know, when somebody's been following a certain tradition for a long time, they feel a threat by new people coming in who may also question the traditional ways in which they've worked. There's a lot of guardianship of different categories of jobs, and there's often resistance.
I don't believe it is meat, but if they call it meat, then how would they differentiate it? And all of a sudden this new group comes in and they just want to call their product beef and ride on our coattails. And I think that's wrong.
The US Cattlemen's Association, a trade group made up of 10,000 ranchers, was one of the loudest detractors.
The US Cattlemen's Association filed a petition last month with the Department of Agriculture. It argues lab-grown and plant-based products should not use the terms meat or beef on their labels.
The United States Cattlemen's Association is now petitioning the country's Department of Agriculture to define meat as coming from the flesh of an animal, slaughtered in the traditional way.
We don't agree with the term clean meat. That implies that traditional ranching is dirty.
The biggest concern is that it implies real meat is somehow dirty.
Politics and corporate greed, they go hand in hand.
Do not believe the labels, the lies, advert, and the propaganda and the scams of these industries.
We are approaching the tipping point. We have the momentum, but the other side is fighting back. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
Animal rights groups have been exposing shocking videos of inhumane conditions at factory farms.
I am an undercover investigator, and I have never gone into an operation that we've targeted and seen happy animals.
It's institutionalized torture on a scale that we've never seen before in the history of humankind.
Time and again, our undercover investigations behind these closed doors of the meat and dairy industries are revealing systemic animal suffering.
I defy anyone here to look at the images of those animals and say that this suffering is okay. It's not. It is unacceptable.
Because what we're doing is unspeakable, it's despicable, and it's ignorant. I see a clear change. A change is going to happen very soon. I can see it.
As information around the impact of animal agriculture was disseminated worldwide, companies began to accept the inevitable fate of the growing plant-based sector.
The future looks really, really bright for plant-based, and it's being recognized by leaders in the industry, not only the plant-based, but even big meat companies like Tyson that are investing in plant-based.
The more insightful meat bosses had already started investing in alternative protein, with Tyson president Tom Hayes saying, if you can't beat them, join them, before investing in clean meat company Memphis Meats. Canadian conglomerate Maple Leaf Foods bought vegan brand Field Roast, and German poultry company PHW backed vegan seafood. And as 2018 progressed, investment funds took notice and transferred significant capital into the meat analogue industry. However, it was one businessman that really stood out. Jeremy Collar, one of the most influential businessmen in financial equity, founded the FAIR Initiative, an anti-factory farming investor group with assets worth over $8 trillion, which included Swiss banking giant UBS. As well as injecting large quantities of wealth into the plant-based sector, this group also encouraged supermarkets to offer more plant-based options and lobbied for a meat tax.
Farm Animal Investment Risk and Return Initiative says that a tax on meat is inevitable.
We're not talking about PETA here or some lobby group. This is an influential group.
While some saw a meat tax as the answer to a number of environmental issues, others laughed at the idea.
Did you hear? Environmentalists are pushing for a tax on meat, claiming hamburgers, steaks, and other delicious delectables are harmful to the environment.
The media are up there as guilty parties with the oil industry, with the coal industry. They stop us from thinking, they stop us from questioning, they stop us from recognizing where we stand with respect to our multiple predicaments, and in so doing, they perform a grave disservice.
What they do is what I call fake environmentalism. They tell people to change their light bulbs and drive an electric car, but they're not telling them to do the most important thing if you're an environmentalist, which is give up meat and dairy and switch to a plant-based diet.
While the mainstream media stuck to the traditional narrative, social media was used.
Any good movement that is successful has those extreme people. It also has the softer people to apply and get people to change
And
their
a
minds.
growing number of celebrities started speaking out.
Why the mission? Here's why. I'm tired of being pimped by food companies and then eating bad, poisonous food and then feeling horrible in the morning and then working and not taking care of my body. That's why.
Innovative chefs started actively casting off the limitations of traditional cuisine, offering mainstream audiences vegan food.
Here to break it down, the British plant-based chefs and authors of the new cookbook Bosh, Henry Firth and Ian Thiesby.
Well, we've got 3 vegan chefs and they've all prepared some of your favourite dishes. We've got a doner kebab, pizza and mac and cheese.
For anybody that's out there, they're thinking like they want to change their life and they want to go plant-based and they just think they can't do it. I just want people to understand that like no matter what your tradition is, you can make a new one. You know what I'm saying? Like, the same traditions and the same laws that you follow, somebody thought that up. It wasn't like some God came on the earth, wrote this on a tablet, and was like, that's how we have to do it, and that's it. If you see something's wrong and you see something feels better, go for what feels better.
And the good news is there's a convergence of forces that after 4 decades finally makes this the right idea at the right time.
And basically, as I look around the table, Dr. Dotson, no meat. Is that what I'm sensing here?
That's good, considering I don't know anything that's in it. I don't know what it is, but I like it.
You know, we've been hearing so much about plant-based eating lately, haven't we, right? And I don't know, I'm a meat eater, but it gives you food for thought.
I think the most important message that I have is to remember that you, and I'm speaking to you watching this film, you make a difference. You as an individual make a difference. What you do each day actually is affecting what's going on in the world each day. So your life matters, you matter, and use your life wisely.
We're going to pack up, okay? Pack up all the signs, pack up all the food, pack up all the tables, take it all to the car, okay? And about 15 minutes we're going to hang out near the cars, all right? And then we'll come back, okay? So then what they probably will do is radio through to the trucks. Apparently there's some trucks being held back. Then they'll send them through. And by that time we'll be back here. Trick them, they trick us, we'll trick them.
Throughout 2018, an increasing number of people engaged in activism, shining a light on standard practices within industry by either waiting outside slaughterhouses to bear witness to the animals facing death, raiding slaughterhouses themselves, making videos on the kill floor, or partaking in cubes of truth.
NBC6 anchor Trina Robinson joins us tonight with more on this new group that you may have seen in protests around the area. Trina.
Yeah, the group is called Anonymous for the Voiceless. They want people to think about the rights of animals and where their food comes from.
Are you a dairy farmer, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Do you own a dairy farm now?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So what is it?
Man, I'm just saying before, you've got to be very, very careful what you're doing here.
Why is that? No, you gotta be very careful. You could ruin our industry.
If we can't face the reality, how can you morally justify paying for it to continue? What about the choice of the animals who have a preference to live that life? You see, we can eat other things. It's not a necessity for us to eat animal products. We can survive and thrive on a plant-based diet.
Often what people mean when they say it's their personal choice is that it's a free choice they're making. And they're not making their choices freely, because without awareness there is no free choice. And the vast majority of people are not aware of how they've been deeply conditioned.
Knowledge is power, and when we're given both sides of the argument, we can make a conscious decision based on how we truly feel about the situation. I mean, for so long, we've been fed the same kind of propaganda of you need meat for protein, you need dairy, cow's milk for calcium, but actually this isn't true. And when we can kind of level the playing field and put across what's actually happening to animals, the terrible suffering that they go through, and the environmental damage that it causes to our whole planet, I think when people have that power, they're more compelled and empowered to make informed decisions.
I didn't change until I truly knew the horrific nature of how these animals were treated.
And so what these activists are doing is really journalism. They're going and filming inside of these facilities.
As public awareness started to grow, farmers found themselves under increasing pressure.
You do get death threats, which is quite ironic coming from people.
With one farmer, Alison Waugh, insinuating she had received death threats during a segment broadcast by the BBC. She later clarified that she personally had not been the target of death threats, but it was too late, as a vaudeville of unsubstantiated accusations against vegans spread across the globe. It was clear the media witch hunt had begun.
These guys are terrorists for the farming community. They're terrorists.
That vegans are travelling down the path to radicalisation.
They put my picture up with these claims without evidence.
On a une militante végane.
In most cases, it is peaceful and legal. But farmers say they're also facing regular harassment and abuse.
It summed up the strange mood of our time, where even though veganism had never been more popular and initiatives like Plant-Based News' World Plant Milk Day reached record numbers, vested interests impeded momentum.
It's true that animal agriculture and many people within it are trying to hold on to the status quo.
And activists are up against an industry that makes billions.
Stop this! Hey, buddy!
Even various social media platforms, which had once been heralded as driving the information age, were believed to be censoring environmental and vegan-related pages. And as this happened, it left the public questioning institutions' and corporations' susceptibility to collude with the world's most powerful industry.
Do you know what is a multi-billion-dollar lobby? The cheese lobby has a multi-billion-dollar lobby. The dairy industry, the beef industry.
There's also ag-gag laws, agricultural gag laws that prevent people from filming on these factory farms because they don't want people to know how horrific those conditions are.
And it's completely closed, the meat industry. You cannot see behind the curtain. In certain states, there's laws where you're not even allowed to talk about what goes on.
This is huge business, and so there's a lot of money being funneled into ensuring that we are deluded into this idea that these have a place on a healthy plate.
Not only did the animal agriculture industry continue to siphon off tens of billions in the form of subsidies, but there was more evidence of how federal agencies were working with the meat industry to intimidate activists.
And that's why these corporations, which control the government and control law enforcement, are prosecuting them. They're punishing them in response to the journalism that they're doing to chill and deter people from shining a light on what it is that really goes on inside of American industrial farms and the horrific torture and suffering that animals endure in our name.
The meat industry invested in nitrate-free, so-called healthy bacon, and in a contentious move, desperate meat bosses even licensed superhero images in an effort to peddle processed burgers and sausages to children.
The way advertisers subliminally equate meat eating and dairy consumption with values that we cherish is really sinister, and it's misleading. They equate meat to masculinity, eating dairy to femininity. They equate meat and dairy to upward mobility, patriotism, social status, keeping up with the Joneses, family values. It has nothing to do with any of it. In fact, quite the contrary. It's hurting families. It's creating disease. It's a bad influence on our society. So what they're doing is really, really morally wrong.
3 major meat boards joined forces in a bid to push their products onto consumers, whose data showed were starting to turn their backs on meat.
Meat products are rapidly losing popularity right across Canada, as many people are switching their diets to vegetarian or vegan.
In fact, by the summer of 2018, it was revealed that the vegan sector had skyrocketed, and growth of plant-based food sales were outpacing that of meat and dairy tenfold. This story was being repeated in regular market forecasts, which predicted even more growth, saying the global plant milk market would exceed $21 billion by 2024. This was helped by vegan milk brand Oatly, who emblazoned major transport hubs and buildings with ads that said oat milk is like milk, but made for humans.
A local group promoting veganism is using some bold imagery to get their point across.
As sales exceeded targets leaving shelves bare, the message amplified around the world, resulting in pushback from the dairy industry.
Well, got milk? You may be one of the millions of Americans who prefer a plant-based substitute like almond milk or soy milk, but the FDA is looking to change what those products are allowed to be called.
Just the other week, the FDA announced a proposed rule that would ban the use of the term milk for all non-dairy products.
In similar fashion to the meat industry, the dairy industry cracked down on the labelling of its plant-based counterparts, but then took things further by firstly calling on the Canadian and US government's might for financial assistance, secondly branding anti-milk posters a hate crime, and thirdly funding research that produced headline-grabbing claims in an attempt to conceal the real impact of the dairy industry from the public.
You can't hide the sun, you can't hide the moon, and you can't hide the truth. And the truth will come out.
I'm here so excited to be a part of this because I think this moment can be about so many different things. And for me, I want to bring a message, which is veganism and that there doesn't have to be torture in fabulous fashion.
Throughout 2018, celebrities continued to share information about the benefits of a plant-based diet, including Miley Cyrus, Kings of Leon star Jared Followill, Alicia Silverstone, Bryan Adams, and Zac Efron. Iconic actor and activist Pamela Anderson said a vegan diet improved her sex life. Chris Hemsworth credited the lifestyle for his muscular physique, as did Jackass star Steve-O and Neo. While other well-known personalities announced they had ditched animal products, including Chris Packham, Tom Ford, Sean King, Ellie Goulding, and Ellen Pompeo. Former cardiac surgeon and entertainer Bassem Youssef promoted the plant-based lifestyle to the Arab world, and the diet even reverberated around royal families.
Thankfully, my passion and my field is not in finance or in investment banking, but it's in making the world better.
Celebrities used their profiles to share an animal rights message. For example, Alan Cumming actively campaigned against dairy. Sopranos star Eddie Falco protested the treatment of animals outside McDonald's in Times Square. Ivana Lynch spoke at London's Animal Rights March, and Lewis Hamilton shared animal rights videos across social media.
I can't imagine going back. Like, there's things that I see my friends eating, and I used to eat it. And I'm like, I feel sick to think what you're putting in your body. But it's because now I've read about it and I understand it. I've read some of the science and I'm like,
Eating without meat, it is a diet trend growing in popularity with athletes and celebrities, including, of course, Tom Brady.
Detroit Lions running back Theo Riddick and Red Wings player David Booth also following plant-based diets. And you know who does as well? Beyoncé.
While Beyoncé promoted a plant-based diet using social media, other celebrities took to film to spread awareness, the most notable being James Cameron, who executively produced The Game Changers, which featured Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of the most recognizable figures and symbols of power, is in this documentary.
So this is the best plant-based documentary in human history.
Other films were announced, many with high-profile casts, including Eating Our Way to Extinction, Eating Animals, Running for Good, Taking Note, Let Us Be Heroes, What You Eat Matters, and Cowspiracy sequel Seaspiracy, set to expose the fishing industry.
When we first embarked on this project, we had no idea that we'd be coming across the levels of destruction that we have been.
We're looking at probably the most serious problem on the planet right now, diminishment of biodiversity, especially in our ocean.
Towards the end of 2018, the urgency around climate change made headlines.
There is a new report out about climate change, and it is not positive, to say the least, and you're going to break it down for us.
Yeah, it is not positive. I mean, it just keeps getting worse. Urgent transformational change. That is the headline. That is what we're talking about. That's what needs to happen for us to really make a difference here. And we're not just talking on specifics. We're going to nail down the numbers here because they got very specific in this report.
A new study described as the most comprehensive of its kind added more weight to the discussion around the impact of animal agriculture. The UN branded meat the world's most urgent problem, and by the end of the year, mankind's effect on the planet was blamed for Hurricane Florence, which ravaged the east coast of America and highlighted the damaging consequences of industrial farming. In the lead up to the storm, millions of animals were locked up and left to drown so that farmers could claim insurance, a damning example of how animals are viewed as mere commodities.
Over 99% of farmed animals live on factory farms.
Most of the population does not understand nor know the abuse that goes on in these farms.
This was further highlighted in Dominion, a cinematic exposé of factory farming in Australia, narrated by Kat Von D, Sadie Sink, Sia, Joaquin Phoenix and Rooney Mara. Premieres of the movie sold out globally from the UK to China. With Australian agricultural groups reportedly bracing themselves for a backlash, it was clear the meat industry was growing wary of how the exposé might affect its business.
But you won't stop blokes like us. You won't stop us. You got no fucking hope. I'm telling you. And you ought to be fucking careful again.
As the Dominion movie kickstarted a movement, with thousands taking to the streets to protest the global exploitation of animals, a powerful and stark vision started unfolding of the coming battle between two sides of history.
I said fucking.
Yeah. I said
And animals in our society are the most vulnerable that we have. And, if there's anyone in this world that should be protecting the vulnerable, it should be us guys. We should be leading from the front. And, I think that's what being a real man is. It's not about, doing all this macho shit. It's actually about acknowledging what's true and being honest to that.
Get the fuck back now! Get off the fucking pavement! Whoa! Get the fuck back now! Get back!
It's like the stuff we're doing to animals is so fucked. Like, honestly, it's so fucked up. When you take a step back and look at what we're doing, just give me a sec.
Every revolution starts with a whisper, but the real change comes with a roar.
I fully expect to go to prison someday, and I'm totally fine with that, because I think it is the cost of creating change.
I think what Mahatma Gandhi said, you can judge a society by the way it treats its animals. That's a pretty reasonable observation from a very wise man. So why don't we get wise?
I mean, Paul said that farming is transparent. It's anything but transparent. The things that we do to animals in terms of the mutilations are not transparent. What happens in slaughterhouses is not transparent. And even on a dairy farm, things like the male calves and the female calves being separated from their mothers, many people don't know that.
How the hell did I not know this? It just makes you feel stupid. Like, honestly, I feel stupid.
If I look and see something's wrong, I don't do the wrong. And we keep continuing doing the wrong just because of horrible traditions. Just because something's tradition, it doesn't make it right.
For me, it's an ethical decision. I don't want to fuck with something that can't defend itself.
None of us are trying to be horrible people. We've just been brought into this world where we're just, all this fucked up shit is being seen to be normal.
There is no such thing as humane slaughter.
I've got to say, if I'm calling time on this industry, I think time is well and truly past.
Make no mistake, there is no happiness in the dairy industry.
If any other organism did this, a biologist would call it a virus.
And the amount of victims is a number that you can't even comprehend with our minds.
This is a big, big leap. This is the ultimate test for humanity.
The Arctic Ocean is heating up at a much faster pace than the rest of the Earth. Temperatures over parts of the Arctic will increase as much as 54 degrees Fahrenheit this month.
If there is a future for humanity, that future will not involve using animals for food.
Veganism is the solution, and it encompasses a much wider range of possibilities for happiness as a species than any other type of diet or lifestyle.
If you really think about it, veganism is the cheapest shit out there. Like, you can go get rice and beans every day and you'll be satisfied. That's the cheapest thing you can get.
It's filling, it's nutritious, it's healthy, it saves the environment, and it's ethical.
Looking back at the last 12 months, 2018, like last year, showed significant progress in the way the mainstream started to adopt veganism. Major magazines repeatedly brought up veganism, including The New Scientist and the FT Weekend. Government institutions like the NHS began to acknowledge the benefits of a plant-based diet, and companies like WeWork implemented major changes.
It was revealed this week that global office-sharing company WeWork are going meat-free.
Organisations gave awards to vegan entrepreneurs, including the World Economic Forum and the United Nations.
Let's start to take protein directly from plants and use science to design and implement that against the blueprint of meat.
Honestly, if I'm being serious, I wouldn't be surprised if we see massive shift in the next 10 to 15 years.
A vegan world is coming.
The quickest and easiest way for an individual to feel empowered and to make a difference and to be able to look at their face in the mirror in the morning and think, I'm making a difference, I'm doing something positive, not just for myself, my own health and my family's health, but for the health of the planet, is to change how we eat.
Veganism isn't a pursuit for perfection. It's about living in a way where you can just try and cause the least amount of harm to the environment, to animals.
Veganism is no longer viewed as a fringe lifestyle choice. It is a moral framework searing into the consciousness of huge numbers of people. The question now is, what will you bring to 2019?
Hi, this is Klaus. Thank you for watching Plant-Based News. It's people like you who mean we can continue to create films, campaigns, and up-to-the-minute plant-based news. I wanted to let you know about PBM Insiders, a subscription-based platform where you can receive exclusive perks and content not available to the general public. If you become a PBM Insider, you'll automatically be entered into a drawing for the chance to win a nutrition course worth over $1,200. This is the eCornell plant-based nutrition course headed up by pioneer Dr. T. Colin Campbell, and you can do it from anywhere in the world because it's over the internet. In addition, PBN Insiders get access to a whole array of unique content, including bonus interview segments, behind-the-scenes PBN footage, cooking videos, vegan diet guides, and much more. But some of my favourite segments include a video featuring 15 of the leading plant-based doctors where they go over their favourite recipes, an exclusive interview of Ed Winters, otherwise known as Earthling Ed, about his journey to becoming the activist that he is today, some behind-the-scenes full-length interviews from our end-of-year documentary Vegan 2018, and there's tons of other interviews including exclusive segments from, for example, Beyonce's nutritionist Marco Borges, Dr. Milton Mills, Dr. Laurie Menino, Dr. Salish Rao, Just and former Hampton Creek CEO Josh Tetrick, Dr. Joel Furman, UK grime artist JME, and Dr. Will Tuttle. A lot of people have also enjoyed the What I Eat in a Day video from Prince Khaled and the meal inspiration video guide and supporting PDF guide from leading fitness models, as well as the cooking segments from world-leading plant-based chefs. You also get to access the library of conference presentations, including Dr. Anthony Hadge's 40-minute talk about the power of plant-based nutrition, a private plant-based news event, and much more. Becoming a PBN Insider directly supports our mission to create more films, campaigns, and of course, up-to-the-minute plant-based news across all of our social media platforms.